Gonna do the final preparation with cultivating the area for planting new trees next summer. Some sections were too steep to drag the cultivator behind the forwarder, so the little excavator is gonna do some work with that. And when doing that kind of job, I removed the rototilt attachment, two hydraulic hoses, and electric connector, and then it's a manual coupling between that attachment, semi-manual, because you need to undo it and then it stays unlocked until you hook a new attachment on there, and you can kind of give that a little uh, push and then it locks automatically. As you can see, I'm using the bigger bucket with teeth. If you've seen some old videos, I've had a much smaller bucket without any teeth, and a lot of the area here I'm gonna rely on seedlings. The wetter area down here will be planted with mainly spruce, but up where it's drier I'm gonna aim for pine trees, and the really steep parts will probably rely on seeds from the standing pine here if they keep standing and not get blown over. If they get affected by a storm and tip over, I might have to buy more plants and plant more rather than rely on seeds. Did not realize how badly the sun would affect the video footage here, and as usual on camera you can't really tell how steep it is, but it's really steep. I don't think it would even be possible to get the machine all the way up this little ledge here, and the steep area gets kind of longer the further you travel in this kind of groove, the dip in the terrain. Here I can, by climbing close to all the way up, I can get most of the area that I want to cultivate or prepare new good plants for spots for seeds or plants. A little further up on this I needed to attack it both from above and below to reach the entire area. And the bigger bucket makes kind of a bigger planting spot. It does give more good breeding ground or growing grounds for birch and other, I wouldn't say unwanted trees, but I think doing as small of a cultivation as you can will reduce the amount of stuff you need to work with the cutter later on. But who knows? That thing grows everywhere, so. And you have to kind of travel back down and then turn the machine around and go back up the hill as far as you can and keep making new good spots. Place the camera outside, and the video doesn't justify the steepness here. Since I decided I needed to attack it both from below and above, there was no point in struggling trying to get higher than needed. There's no point in pushing the machine to lean over. I'm not sure if the wide angle lens on the camera here also kind of removes some of the steepness, but it's plenty steep here. Steep enough that at the highest I climbed with the machine I did not want to start traveling sideways, so going back down where it's a little less steep and kind of turning 90 degrees and moving a little further, and then kept working my way in here, preparing a few hundred more planting spots or spots for seeds to grow. Here I have moved on to the other side of this valley. That was also on the steep side, maybe not as bad as what you can see in front of the machine. And when I worked from the upper part, I mainly put down the teeth of the bucket and kind of pushed some material downhill to open up a good spot for seeds. And I also, since I traveled along the area that had most of it had been cultivated, in some areas where the forwarder had to go around a couple of the trees left for seeds, I made an extra planting spot here and there with the bucket. And while doing this, you would have wanted a little more reach. A bigger machine would have maybe done this a little bit faster, but this is what I got, and it runs great, and it's paid for, and I use it when needed. But here, reaching a little to the side, I would have loved to be able to just push things over. Couldn't really. Started walking the machine a little forward, and I could feel it kind of want to tip over the edge. It will stop against the blade or something. It won't start going rolling down this hill, but it can feel a little sketchy when it gives a little bit of a seesaw action over an edge. And we had a few nights with freezing temperatures. We are almost in November now. We should start seeing freezing temperatures, and I would love to see some colder weather before starting the logging for this season. And then it's important to clear out the tracks so you don't have some stuff in there that gets frozen and locks things up. So that's a downside of autumn times, when you can have things starting to freeze during the night time. Repeat, this was in the previous mashup video also, because I noticed a tiny bit of diesel seeming to leak out of the connection here on the injection pump. This machine have had the return lines tend to go bad after a couple of years, and you start getting a diesel smell and you need to replace them. But this is new. That's the first time it's started leaking here. But tightening this one especially up a tiny bit seemed to have cured that. And I ran into the track starting to come undone. It's not in place on the front idler. Uh, it happens every now and then, especially when you're out next to the tree stumps and so on. I try to push the front end up and shift it over and so on when traversing forest terrain, but here I didn't catch it in time. The stump put some pressure onto the sideways force onto the track, and it derailed from the idler wheel. So letting go of the tensioner to give it slack enough to come on there easier. It's possible to maneuver the machine around some, and here I had a good stumps that I could maneuver around with the bucket and the other track, and put a little bit of sideways pressure onto the track as I started backing up and trying to get it to start coming back onto the idler wheel at the front. It's a little bit of a tricky maneuver, and then you have a roller at the top that it started to wander off from also. Had a crowbar around that or breaker bar, and could start giving it, helping it manually. Even if it's heavy on this smaller machine, you can do some stuff manually, trying to get things lined up. And a tiny push more, and it's climbed onto the idler wheel. I did not have a grease gun with me, so I couldn't retension the track. And before trying to tension it back, it's important to close the valve here for the grease that tensions the track. With the valve closed, the grease gun could be used to start pumping some grease in there, and it pushes the idler wheel you can see here out and tensions the track. And it's hard to judge how well it's tensioned when it rests on the track itself. So, but I tensioned it up somewhat, and it could be brought out of the terrain. I was really close to a flat level ground, a turning area, and it was pretty much a straight line to get back out here where I could easily tension the track properly. So with it pushed up off the ground, the grease gun was once again used, and it was properly tensioned. And once that was properly tensioned, I checked the other side also, since I wanted to make sure I didn't have any tracks coming undone. I just had a couple of more hours to prepare for new trees with the cultivation to be done for the season with that. And the plan was to finish all of the cultivation this day, but with the track derailing or coming undone, that's not happening today. So the tracks were cleaned out, and the following day everything was done regarding cultivation for this season. So that's good. And thanks for watching. Have a great day.